Are You Really Going to Eat That? Podcast episode 115. So, Lisa, welcome to the podcast. I'm going to have a go at your surname since I asked you just when we started. So, Lisa Zawrotny, have I got that right?
Beautiful.
Yay.
Yes, Wendy. Hi.
So welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and just tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, hi, I'm Lisa Zawrotny. I'm the founder of Positively Productive Systems, the host of the Positively Living podcast, and I'm a productivity and organizing coach, certified in time and stress management. And I use simplicity, self-awareness, and systems as a way to help multi-passionate creatives, the ones who love all the things, are doing all the things, juggling all the things. I help them boost their productivity, balance business and family, all those things, and do it simply and sustainably, because our end goal here is to avoid the burnout, right?
First, let's talk about food. So you've talked about your journey through orthorexia. So that started, am I right? And you just trying to find healthier food, and a genuine quest to improve your health. And obviously it kept going a little bit. Would that be fair analogy?
Yeah, I think that that's definitely part of it. So some of it ties into the story of why I became the coach that I am today. And just in a really big nutshell, I was a caregiver for my mom, and I had my two children. I was actually pregnant with let me see, I had both of my children. I was pregnant with both of them while caring for my mom, who had Alzheimer's.
Wow,
So
okay.
it was a very dark and difficult time. I mean, I'm not saying there weren't beautiful moments as well. I was caring for people that I love, but it took so much out of me, and everything I could possibly do to get through it. I was in survival mode. I was trying to do, and I do think there's an element, if I'm thinking back on it, of control and saying, well, what can I do? But I was coming at it from a very, I would say, a positive and well-intentioned place, that I needed to fuel myself, that I needed to be more energized to be able to handle everything that was coming at me. And then during the pregnancies too, I was able to say, okay, the most important thing is the nutrition and, just living well and taking care of myself. But then, in between and then after, it was this constant path of, okay, what can I do better? How can I be better and handle more? And it got more and more intense unintentionally. The concept of eating well, eating healthy, nourishing your body is so, accepted, with good reason, right? That I guess it's a sort of like a slippery slope as to how far you take it and where you go. And it took me a while to say, wow, this is happening to me and this is how it's manifesting. And the real thing was the psychological side of it for me. In that, yes, I was eating well. And yes, I could tell that certain things were like, they were good foods for me. But it was getting to the point where sometimes I just didn't know what to eat at all, because I could tell you what could potentially be wrong and unhealthy about every single food.
Yeah.
And every meal that I had, would involve some sort of maybe guilt, if you will. So it was a real psychological battle. So I think it probably took the span of a year. And again, this was after the pregnancies, because the pregnancies allowed me a breather, right? Where that gave me purpose. And I think that was a really good sign, and probably something that I pulled from. And to this day, I think about that. Like when you go for that bigger why, it can take you out of your head and like where you're struggling. So I remember thinking, well, when I was pregnant, I trusted myself, and I opened myself up to the possibilities. And I would say maybe like a year or so, it was like a back and forth, a little bit of an ebb and flow, where it wasn't, it's not that you're like deep in these issues every single day, but you keep thinking, can I do better? And is my body where I want it to be? And there were so many changes, I think, in that first year postpartum of my second child, that I couldn't quite figure out what I was doing. But when I felt like, I guess things had leveled off a bit. And so much was happening too, because I was grieving as well.
Mm-hmm.
I finally realized that I was still feeling that constant guilt, and it was translating to my children.
Yes. Yeah. And this is the worry, isn't it? That we send signals, even if we don't
Yeah.
mean to, we send signals, don't we?
Right. So, and that was kind of the aha moment of, whoa, this is not right. And of course I love to research and I love to read. And I'm sure somewhere in all of that, in the conversations that I was having, it was like, if you're feeling guilty all the time about what you're eating, it doesn't matter what you're eating. It's not healthy for you because of that state that you're
Yeah.
in. And I know that now,
Mm-hmm.
as a stress management coach, how much that changes even how we're just absorbing what we eat, because when we're in that constant state of stress, it's just, none of it's good for us, no matter what we're doing. And so in that aha moment, I took to research again, and I found Evelyn Tribole's book, on intuitive eating. And I was like, oh, this is a thing, like, you don't know what you don't know. And I started to read that and pour into this idea of intuitive eating. I was like, oh, it's taking us back to what we started with in the first place. And
Yeah.
how did we get away from this, where we're constantly second guessing ourselves and we're not trusting ourselves and our bodies? And I loved that concept, and I poured into it. And that was how I began the path back to where I am today, is still constantly trying to trust myself. But that was the aha moment, and the way in which I pulled out of that nosedive.
That's brilliant. And I think I'm a huge fan of intuitive eating as well. And I think modern society doesn't really always allow us that, if like I work from home, so I have clients here, so I have to kind of work around that kind of schedule. So sometimes I have to eat within a specific time window between a time frame, and so that can be challenging. Whereas intuitively, we can eat when we're ready, which is what we would have done, but not everybody can. But if you can, it's a great way to nourish your body. I really genuinely believe if you listen properly, your body also tells you what it wants. So, sometimes I want an apple, or I crave nuts, and I'm sure it's because there's a mineral that's there that my body is telling me I need. But it's hard because it's not something we're taught, is it, ever, to listen. You're told to eat, you have your breakfast before you go to school, have your lunch at lunchtime, have your tea at tea time. We're taught to eat to schedule, not to say, are you hungry now? Do you want to eat? Stop when you're full. It's not a language we use with children, really, is it?
It's so true. And there's the, oh wait, don't eat, you'll spoil your dinner.
Yeah.
It's like, but if you're hungry now, and that's something that I definitely, I challenge myself to do with my children, is to let go of those those, I guess, those strict rules, because I want them to learn to say, okay, I'm hungry now, I'm not hungry now, and be okay with it. And because then they're learning to listen to their body. And you're right, I don't think that we are taught that. And as a matter of fact, I think we're discouraged in general of listening to our body. It's like, well, if you're hungry, don't always eat when you're hungry. And all these other rules that are being thrown at us. Of course, I I rant against the diet culture. So that's one of the
Get on my soapbox with me.
yes, that's one of the many things I love about you and your podcast. I'm so there. I mean, you had me at foodie, but then beyond that, I'm like, thank you. I love that you, like you say, you cut through the headlines, right? And I'm like, please, because there's so much misinformation out there, which as a productivity coach, I call clutter.
Yes.
It's like
Noise.
mental clutter for us, right?
Yeah.
And all that noise. And I've lived with it. I've lived in, like, just being inundated with it. Like, oh, I don't feel like I'm enough, or my body type matters, or if I'm hungry, I'm not supposed to pay attention to that. I'm supposed to be hungry. You just get all of this information thrown at you.
I'm a big fan of baby steps. So
Mm-hmm.
you get clients come in and they're like, they expect you. They kind of sometimes they're disappointed when I just tend to send them away and say, drink some water and eat a bit more veg, and I'll see you in 4 weeks. And they're like, is that it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's all you need to do for now. And they expect me to give them like a 28-day meal plan, and are you the same with kind of productivity? Is it because it's habits, isn't it? And if you create better
Exactly.
habits.
Yes. And that's the key point, is that you are working within a construct that is absolutely proven. So they're coming in with the expectation, the desire. They want it when they're ready to change, and when they're ready to write it, they want it yesterday. I get it. Me too.
Yeah.
And that is why all of these, the diet culture, that is why the Marie Kondos, people who organize and I have this proven system. Yeah, but it's proven for you. It's not necessarily proven for me. And that's what I'm trying to debunk with productivity as well. What you're talking about is habits. Habits comprise 40 to 45% of what we do every single day. So even things you think are like intentional choices on your part are actually habits. And the way that we create habits is by finding like the smallest, simplest step that we can start to do repeatedly, and then build upon that. Then you habit stack, or you do something I call anchoring a habit. You start drinking that water, and so when you fill up that water every day, the next thing you do is what? Prep the veggies, or you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you kind of add those steps, and you build upon it. But just like anything else, you don't go to the gym and say, "Give me your heaviest weight." You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've got new trainers. I'm going to run a marathon. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I only run when I'm chased, but that's a whole
Yeah,
different
me too
story.
now.
So yeah, you have to start small, and it's difficult because that's the part where there's a leap of faith there, and it goes back to that trust, doesn't it? That this wait, that where I want to go is going to come from starting here. Yes, it will.
Yeah, because
Trust the
people can't
process.
always just suppose you can't always see the path, can they? You can see that
No,
path, but they
right.
can't always. And I love the fact that you call it positively. So, that was obviously positively Lisa as well, which is your moniker, which I love. So I kind of what was the reasoning for you around that? Because productivity, I think, sometimes has a negative connotation. You must be productivity for me immediately means work harder, which you are the exact opposite of that, aren't you? So is that where the positively sort of came from?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. I mean, I love the fact that I make people think, and they're like, wait, what? Hang on. And that I can, say it's actually not what you think. Let's turn the narrative around. But the positively part, I mean, it came from my nature in general, but mostly the idea that there's so much frustration and overwhelm. The burnout that I mentioned in the very beginning, that I'm trying to help people avoid, comes from getting trapped in the life of busy as opposed to being truly productive, right? It comes from this idea that our identities and our values come from how much we do, and all of the things. So, and then we try something like we just talked about. You have these systems or frameworks, whether they're diets or ways to declutter or whatever, out there to be more productive or happier or live better, be a better person. And we try it and it doesn't work for us. And the first thing we do is we have this shame about it. Like, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Nothing. That wasn't for you. And because we miss that part of it. And so the positively for me is not everything's always happy, but rather taking that positive psychology side and saying, okay, there's hope. It's possible. What can I do? What steps can, like you said, with it, start drinking water. Can you do that? Yes, you can. Okay, start with that. And having that belief, again, it goes back to positive psychology, which is a proven science
Yeah.
now of stepping into that growth mindset. So that's where the two juxtapose, and I love it because that's the foundation that is going to make this sustainable for you.
I'm going to do my quick fire around you now. So my first question for you is what food reminds you of childhood?
Oh my goodness. I have a few, like, I'm torn, so I'm going to talk about the meal instead, which is Rouladen, which is a rolled beef dish from Germany.
Okay.
And with that, a German cucumber salad.
Which is, it has dill in it, doesn't it? I believe. Am I
It
right?
has dill, and you shave the cucumber really thin, salt it, squeeze out the water, and then a little vinegar, some dill, some sour cream.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I'm sure
So
I've had
that
that when I
combination.
think I've had it when I've been in Austria, I think maybe, but yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
lovely, really nice.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that, definitely. What is your most memorable meal?
It's probably this. No, I was about to say it's probably the same thing because of childhood, but I'm going to take that back because we had the oh my goodness, the honor and the pleasure and the luxury of honeymooning in Hawaii, my husband and I.
Oh, I want to go to Hawaii. I've never been.
Oh my goodness. And he had the tuna steak and I had the steak and we actually had it. You know how you have to order the souffle at the beginning of the meal? We actually had the chocolate souffle and we ate that meal like like a few feet away from the ocean.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it was just everything that you want a meal to be. The highest quality food, the highest quality company, relaxing, savoring. It was just phenomenal. And we talk about it to this day, and we've been married a while.
It's lovely. And I think for me, what most people say, it's not just, often people say they can't even remember the food that they've had. So you've done really well, but it is almost that it's as we say, it's everything, even with that meal, the most memorable meal is because of who you were with, what time of your life it was with, that you were in beautiful Hawaii, the weather was wonderful. All of these things add to it. It wasn't just the food, was it? I think that
So
really
true.
encompasses what we've talked about today. And my final question for you is, so this is a very British question, but you've listened to the podcast, so you should understand. So what have you got for tea, which is for us is would be what have you got for your dinner? What have you got for your evening meal? And in the north of England, they say, what have you got for tea?
Okay, so when you're saying like specifically today or
Yeah,
in
to like,
general,
yeah, what's
like
your next meal going to be? Yeah. So it's always
oh
a catch
yeah,
out. Yeah, because you have to tell me the truth, you see.
yes, no, I love that, and so you have to catch me on that specific day, and I love that because I am constantly thinking about my next meal.
Me
But
too.
what
That's why I ask
see, this is
it.
why we're besties.
Yeah.
And I wish I could say tacos because it's one of my favorite, but in
Ooh.
keeping it real, tonight is pizza. And I'm stoked about it because it also means I'm not cooking.
Brilliant. And I love pizza. And
Yeah.
I mentioned you've helped me because I mentioned pizza in every episode because I'm hoping one day a pizza company is going to sponsor me because pizza is my favorite food.
See, yeah. And it just,
That's why
so
my
I
best is.
promise I didn't plan this. It was just meant to be. It was kismet that tonight
Oh,
happens to be pizza night. It's on my meal plan on the fridge. I can take a picture of it and send it to you for proof.
I love that. And do you have a favorite kind of toppings? What do you go for when you have pizza?
I am a huge fan of pepperoni, unapologetically.
I just think sometimes I go for these really kind of complicated pizzas. I'll often choose like something that sounds really weird and wonderful. And my husband always has double pepperoni. That's it. He's like really happy. And I always look over and I have food envy and I think I should have just had pepperoni. It's just like, why make life hard?
It's the foodie
Asparagus and
conundrum, right, Wendy?
yeah, it's true.
You're like, I want to try something exotic. Buffalo chicken pizza, fabulous. And yet, look at the pepperoni. Yeah, sometimes you got to
Pepperoni.
go with the classic. And I have to
Definitely.
say, I do that.
Good for you. Good for you. Lisa, it's been an absolute delight to speak today. Thank you so much for your time. And like I said, we're going to put all of your links in the show notes. So enjoy your pizza.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's been my pleasure.
Oh, thank you.